Revealed, the heartwarming letter that transformed my family's life after 5 years of isolation. Sarah had thought she'd never escape the shadows of her grief. It had been 5 long years since her husband, Tom, had left this world. Each day felt heavier than the last, every moment marked by his absence. But one crisp autumn afternoon, while cleaning the attic, something miraculous happened. She stumbled across an old baseball glove, the leather cracked and faded. Tucked inside was a letter. Her heart raced as she pulled it out. Dear Sarah, his handwriting was clear, vibrant even. It was as if he was talking directly to her. I've always believed in the strength of our family. If you ever feel lost, remember what we dreamed of together. Tears blurred her vision. The words were a lifeline, a whisper of hope and love that transcended time. In that moment, something within her stirred. Could this be the spark she needed to reignite their family's life? Deep down, the weight of isolation had kept her from reaching out, but as she read on, she felt a surge of determination flowing through her veins. She couldn't let their story end in silence. Inspired, Sarah made a decision. She would host a neighborhood potluck. It was time to break the silence that hung like fog over her life. With each invitation she delivered, her heart raced. On the day of the potluck, anticipation buzzed in the air, but so did a sense of dread. When neighbors began to arrive, whispers floated through the crowd. They noticed her worn shoes and faded clothes. She felt the judgment. But Sarah knew she had to try. With her voice shaking, she stood up. I just want to share our story. Her gut twisted, vulnerability spilling from her heart. She spoke of Tom, of loss, and the battle of being a single mother. Her words hung in the air, raw and honest, cradled by the tension in the room. Slowly, the whispers faded, replaced by nods of understanding. An older woman stepped forward, her eyes wet with empathy. I remember your husband. He was a good man. The acknowledgement rang out, building into a genuine response, and Sarah felt the cracks within her heart start to mend. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the potluck progressed, laughter mingled with the tension, and barriers began to crumble. Offering of help and shared recipes flowed freely. For a moment, Sarah felt the warmth of community wrapping around her like a warm blanket. The air turned electric as hearts opened. But just when it seemed they might all embrace this path of renewal, an unexpected confrontation broke the peace. A neighbor challenged why Sarah deserved help when so many had worked hard for years. The pain of that judgment was undeniable. But rather than shrink back, she stood tall. I'm just trying to heal, she asserted defiantly, feeling the strength ignite within her. As the evening wore on, the rhythm of acceptance surged, but the shadows of the past loomed thickly. What sacrifices were made for acceptance? The weight of uncertainty cast a long shadow over newfound friendships, and Sarah stood in the flickering candlelight, wondering if they could truly bridge the gulf between respect and disdain. Would they remain unseen, or would her family's love finally find its place in the heart of the community? The evening air was thick with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, a fusion of hope and lingering doubts. Sarah felt the warmth of the community gathering around her, yet the earlier confrontation replayed in her mind. How fragile the blooms of connection could be, she mused, so easily threatened by bitter words. She glanced around, taking in the faces of her neighbors. Some were nodding appreciatively, others still wore expressions of skepticism. Her heart raced as she heard children laughing, their voices weaving through the tension like sunlight through clouds. It gave her courage. With each smile exchanged, she felt a bit lighter. The shared stories, the laughter, they were small threads stitching her back into the fabric of community. Maybe tonight could be a beginning, she thought. Who wants dessert? A voice called out, breaking through Sarah's reverie. It was Claire, the neighbor with the wild blonde curls. She stepped forward with a cake that looked almost too beautiful to slice. "I brought my famous pumpkin pie." Laughter erupted as children clamored for a piece, and in that chaotic moment, it became clear. This gathering wasn't just about Sarah. It was about everyone, a collective effort to patch the small rips that time and circumstance had made in their unity. "All right, I'll slice it," Sarah proclaimed, grabbing the plates and feeling bold. As she passed cake to her neighbors, she noticed something unexpected, a flicker of warmth in Paul's eyes, her most critical neighbor. Perhaps this was his way of softening the harsh judgment he'd spoken earlier. Hope, fragile but undeniable, flickered anew when her daughter, Lily, wandered over with sticky fingers and an oversized grin, pulling Sarah's attention. A wave of love and pride washed over her. "Mom, can I help?" Lily asked eagerly, her innocence a reminder of the joy still possible in their lives. "Of course, sweetheart." Sarah beamed, her heart swelling as they worked together, side by side. They created a small assembly line, handing out treats, laughter ringing out. A few neighbors stopped to lend a hand, sharing cheerful banter. Slowly, the rigid edges of awkwardness softened, truths intertwined like scraggly roots growing into new ground. Just as Sarah was about to relax, Claire approached her, her face serious. "I wanted to apologize for how I reacted earlier," she said, trembling under the weight of her words. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize how it was for you. We've all struggled, but that doesn't make your pain any less." Tears stung Sarah's eyes. "Thank you, Claire. I'm just trying to find my way." The two women shared a moment that felt monumental, like an unspoken agreement made to forge ahead, together. But even as could feel the remnants of their past failures begin to unbind, another voice cut through the night's warmth. "We aren't just going to forget what happened in the past, you know?" Paul interjected, his tone less harsh but still questioning. His challenge hung in the air, tension refilling the space. It was a reminder that embracing acceptance didn't erase history. "I don't expect anyone to forget," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "But we can work toward understanding. Trust takes time." It felt good to assert this, to lay a foundation she could build upon. As she glanced around the room, she saw shared looks of contemplation, flickers of new understanding igniting in the soft candlelight. Perhaps her family's story could weave into this community's story, creating a tapestry that honored loss and embraced healing. But just then, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house. Startled, everyone turned, and the room collectively held its breath. The moment felt pivotal, a line drawn between old wounds and the possibility of something better. What could lie hidden behind that noise, threatening to shatter the fragile peace she had worked so hard to create? Taking a deep breath, Sarah stepped toward the sound, her heart pounding in rhythm with the question echoing in her mind what awaited her on the other side. As Sarah approached the source of the crash, her heart raced, each beat echoing a mix of fear and determination. The laughter and chatter of the gathering faded into a distant murmur, replaced by the ominous silence of uncertain possibilities. She reached the threshold of her kitchen, a familiar comfort suddenly feeling foreign. "Lily, wait here," she whispered, but her daughter's curious eyes sparkled with excitement. Ignoring her mother's plea, Lily bounded after her, eager to discover the cause of the ruckus. There, sprawled on the floor amid a cluster of fallen chairs and scattered cookbook pages, was Tom, the elderly neighbor who'd lived across the street for as long as Sarah could remember. His face was a mixture of embarrassment and surprise as he sat up, brushing crumbs from his sweater. "I was just trying to grab some leftover pie for the road." He grinned sheepishly, holding up a half-eaten slice. The tension that had thickened moments before shattered, laughter bubbling around the scene as Sarah's neighbors erupted into giggles. Relief poured over her like a gentle rain, washing away the brewing storm. In that moment, Sarah recognized the power of vulnerability. Even the smallest mishaps could weave bonds, coaxing secrets from shadows. "Tom, you have to be more careful." Sarah chuckled as she approached, helping him to his feet. "At least save some for the rest of us." "I meant no harm." He chuckled back, his eyes sparkling with the mischief of youth. After ensuring Tom was all right, Sarah glanced around at the faces now animated with laughter and conversation. Claire caught her eye, raising an eyebrow in playful disbelief. "Leave it to Tom to liven things up," she teased. Her earlier intensity softened further under the lightness of the moment. The community's warmth began to bloom anew, and Sarah felt hope swell in her chest. Maybe it was these unexpected moments, the spills and mishaps, that could rekindle the spirit of togetherness. "Let us check on the rest of the pie," Lily piped up, clapping her hands together. "We can all share." "Great idea, sweetheart." Sarah smiled, wrapping her arm around Lily's shoulders as they walked back to the main gathering. The room was alive again. Conversations flowed like easy streams, laughter bouncing off the walls. Yet, amidst the levity, Paul continued to linger near the back, his earlier critique hanging in the air like an unresolved chord. Sarah caught his gaze, a flicker of unease passing between them. It was clear he hadn't forgotten, not yet. "Sarah?" His voice broke through the jovial atmosphere, earnest and searching. "We need to talk." The hairs on the back of her neck prickled, anxiety tightening her throat. She nodded slowly, though her heart sank. "Of course, Paul. Just give me a moment." As she stepped away, the group followed, fostered conversations, excitements, and whispers of hope. Clusters of laughter faded into the background, while her world narrowed to just her and Paul, the weight of their past looming large. The moment felt charged, the air taut with unspoken words. Sarah took a deep breath. "What is it?" she asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. Paul hesitated, his brow furrowed. "I think we need to clear the air. All of us. The past, it's not going to go away just because we want it to." His honesty pierced her as if he spoke a truth both too familiar and too burdensome. The laughter faded into background noise, the shadows of their respective realities creeping back into view. She could feel the walls closing in on them, but perhaps this confrontation, this exchange of honesty, could be the catalyst for true understanding. The path to healing was messy, but maybe, just maybe, they could make it together. "Okay," Sarah replied, her heart pounding. "Let us talk. But can we do it here? Now? As a community?" Paul's eyes widened in surprise, uncertainty flashing across his features. It was a bold request, asking for help and accountability from those around them. "Yes," he said after a moment, a hint of admiration creeping into his expression. Let us do it." As the two of them faced the gathering, their breaths held in tentative anticipation, Sarah wondered if this could be the turning point. Could they all share their truths? And in doing so, would they find ways to bind their wounds and rejuvenate what had once existed? The answer lay just beyond the threshold of this moment, waiting for the words to be spoken, the fears to be faced. But was the community ready to confront what lay hidden in the shadows? The whisper of uncertainty stirred within her, a question she could not ignore. Could this be the moment of truth they desperately needed? As Sarah stood beside Paul, the room seemed to hold its breath. The chatter faded, replaced by the sound of quiet rustling and curious whispers. Neighbors exchanged glances, uncertainty painting their features. Sarah's heart raced, matching the rhythm of her thoughts. "Everyone," she began, and her voice trembled slightly, "thank you for gathering here. Paul and I have something to share." The words hung in the air, pregnant with possibilities. Paul shifted beside her, his hands now firmly at his sides. The presence of their friends felt both comforting and intimidating. Would they be willing to delve into the depths of pain and misunderstanding? "I know things have been complicated," she continued, searching for the right words. "Too often, we've let our fears and frustrations keep us apart, keeping secrets close like armor. But maybe opening up will help us heal." Claire wrinkled her brow, concern flickering across her face. Sarah had always been the bridge between their lives, and standing before them with such raw honesty felt like stepping off a precipice. Paul cleared his throat, breaking the tension with a hint of nervousness. "I've been harsh," he admitted, his voice steady but soft. "When I confronted Sarah, I only skimmed the surface of our problems. I didn't take into account how deep the wounds ran, both in her and in myself." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. It wasn't just Paul's words, it was the acknowledgement of shared struggles that struck a chord. Sarah could see others nodding, old scars being brought to light. "None of us are perfect," she interjected, emboldened by the support. "We all face challenges, moments we might wish we could forget. But here's the thing, we can grow from them. Together." The realization landed like a spark, igniting the room with a flicker of hope. Her neighbor, Janet, stepped forward. "It's not easy to talk about these things," she admitted. "I've felt the distance too, but maybe we're all just as scared of reaching out." "Exactly," Sarah said, encouraged by Janet's bravery. "Let us not hide behind unspoken words anymore. If we're going to move forward, we have to face what's holding us back. Each of us has something to share." The air thrummed with anticipation. One by one, neighbors began to vocalize their experiences, layering stories of their own insecurities, regrets, and the heavy weight of miscommunication. Laughter broke out over shared mishaps, sorrow flowed out over losses endured. As stories intertwined, the atmosphere shifted. Faces softened. Tears mingled with laughter. Tom, once tumbling in for pie, spoke of loneliness that filled his days since his wife passed. Claire reflected on the pressure of always being the strong one, describing the guilt that crept in when she wasn't. Sarah felt an unexpected warmth blossom in her chest. Here they were, not just as neighbors, but as a community unearthing the raw truth of their existence. "Maybe we've all been waiting for this moment," Paul interjected, glancing at Sarah. "To be real, to be raw. It's about time we acknowledge our humanity." They lingered in the comfort of vulnerability, the barriers slowly dismantling. As discussions flourished, a sense of renewal blanketed them. However, just as the atmosphere began to lift with newfound connections, a voice broke through a sharp, accusatory tone from the back of the room. "And what if it's too late? What if we've already lost too much?" The question hung in the air, heavy with doubt, casting shadows on the light that had begun to flicker. Could they rise above the storms of their past? Or had they already lost the chance to rekindle what once flourished? As the gathering quickly fell silent, Sarah felt the weight of a deeper choice pressing on her chest. If this truly was a moment of transformation, they'd each need to confront not only their stories, but also the unrelenting fear of what lay ahead. Could they summon the courage to embrace the unknown? Or would doubt extinguish the light that was brightening within? The silence in the room felt suffocating. Sarah scanned the faces around her, searching for anyone to break the tension. Paul looked as tense as she felt, his fingers twitching at his sides. The question from the back lingered, casting shadows that threatened to snuff out the flicker of hope they'd just ignited. To her surprise, it was Claire who spoke up this time. "It's never too late to start trying," she said, her voice firm yet gentle. "Look at all of us here. This may be our moment to change things." Others nodded, encouragement sparking in the air. Janet stepped forward again, the weight of her own acknowledgement visibly lifting her shoulders. "We've all had our battles," she said, her eyes glistening. "And we've all suffered in our own ways. But what if we choose to be more than just neighbors? What if we actually become a family again?" Sarah felt a surge of emotion wash over her, as if Janet had touched on something deep and true. It was this unity they needed, a shattering of loneliness, a stitch to bind their wounds. But how? Tom's voice pierced through the uncertainty. "How do we begin to heal? It feels so daunting." Paul stepped closer, his gaze steadied towards Tom. "We begin with honesty. It's scary, but let us commit to being open-minded. We share our fears, our hopes, what we still have left to give." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room again. Here they stood, becoming something greater together, a fragile thread nearing the edge of unraveling yet yearning to expand, to mend. Then, as if the lid was lifted, laughter broke out again, softly at first, then spreading like ripples on water. Chris chimed in, recalling the time he tried to bake cookies for his kids only to burn them into a creative charcoal. Laughter was infectious, and the tension slowly started to dissolve. Sarah watched, her heart swelling with hope at the sight of their walls crumbling. Paul reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers, grounding her in this moment. But just when it felt like they were moving towards healing, the voice from the back spoke again. That all sounds wonderful, but what if someone doesn't want to change? What if they refuse to see the pain? Another shroud of doubt seeped in. Sarah's heart sank at the question. How could they move forward if someone among them remained unwilling to share or to heal? Paul opened his mouth, pausing to think. Even then, he finally said, his tone steady, "We have to acknowledge that each person comes at their own pace. But the door needs to be open for everyone. We need to be ready to greet them with compassion, even if they're struggling." The room was charged with the weight of that truth. Each face in the crowd reflected conflicting emotions, hope mingled with uncertainty. At that moment, an unexpected visitor walked in. A tall figure stood at the door, silhouetted in the evening light. It was Sarah's estranged brother, Michael, his face worn but familiar. Her breath caught in her throat, and a mix of disbelief and hope ignited within her. "Excuse me, is this where the family gathering is?" he asked, glancing around the room awkwardly. A gasp traveled through the crowd, while Sarah's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Had her brother come to join them? Would he bring more questions, or could he finally help them face the demons that haunted their shared past? "Maybe," Paul whispered, squeezing her hand tighter. "This is just the beginning we didn't know we needed." As Sarah stood frozen, a whirlwind of emotions whirling in her chest, she realized a choice was looming. Could this moment truly reshape their lives, or would it send them spiraling once more into uncertainty? The potential for connection hung in the air, heavy and vibrant. What would she say next? And how would they all respond to Michael's sudden return? The room fell silent again, all eyes fixated on Michael. The air thick with unspoken history, Sarah felt her heart race. Memories flooded back, happy times, arguments, and finally, the rift that had driven them apart. She blinked, trying to grasp the reality of him standing there. "Michael?" she finally managed to say, her voice shaky yet determined. "What are you doing here?" He stepped forward, the weight of years evident in his posture. Shadows lingered beneath his eyes, yet a glimmer of something caught Sarah's gaze, something that reminded her of their shared laughter and childhood adventures. I heard voices," he said, his tone hesitant. "I wasn't sure if it was the right place. But it felt, I don't know, like I needed to be here. Like it was time to come back." The room felt electric. Each person was trying to gauge Michael's sincerity. Was this a fleeting decision, or something deeper? Claire's clear voice cut through the tension again. "It is the right place, Michael. We're all trying to mend wounds here." Her words hung in the air, almost like a call to action. Sarah took a breath, uncertainty still pooling in her stomach. "We're here to heal, but we need your honesty too," she said, her eyes locking onto his. "Is that something you can give us?" He looked around at the faces, familiar yet distant. "It's been hard. I didn't want to face things. I thought staying away was easier." Tom chimed in. "Trust me, that has never worked. You're not alone in this. We're all scared." Michael sank into a chair, rubbing his temples as if trying to dispel an invisible weight. "I miss what we had. I miss family." His voice quivered, and the honesty struck deep. Tears filled Sarah's eyes. "We can start over, but only if you're willing to take the first steps with us. We've all struggled, but we want to move forward," she said, her heart pounding with each word. The soft murmur of encouragement rippled through the group. Each nod felt like a chorus of hope, urging Michael on. "You don't have to do this alone. None of us do," Janet added, reaching out to him as if inviting him into their fold. There was a pause. Michael's expression shifted, caught between the walls he built up and the yearning for connection that had been living beneath the surface. "I don't know where to begin," he admitted, the vulnerability cracking the facade. Paul spoke softly. "We can start right here. How about you tell us what you've been through?" The request was simple yet profound. It laid exposed the ground beneath them, ready for healing, but also fraught with potential heartache. Sarah's heart raced, wondering if this would unlock something new or leave them more broken than before. Michael took a deep breath. "All right. I've been carrying a letter. A letter I never sent. One that explains everything." Gasps echoed through the room. "A letter?" Curiosity and fear mingled in her heart. Before she could ask more, he reached into his pocket. Emotions hung heavy as he pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, an artifact of their past, Wrapping them all in a cocoon of somber anticipation. As he unfolded it, faint light glimmered on the page. What secrets would it reveal? Would it bring them together or push them apart once again? The moment hung in the air, thick with promise and trepidation. Everyone leaned in, holding their breath, waiting for his words to spill forth and change everything. What would that letter say? And would it finally break open the floodgates of their hearts? Michael's hands trembled as he smoothed the crumpled paper against his knee. It looked worn, like it had traveled far with him, surviving the storms of regret and the weight of intention. He glanced up at each face in the room, taking in the mixture of hope and apprehension reflected back at him. I wrote this a long time ago, he began, his voice barely above a whisper. It's taken me a while to get here, to be able to admit what I feel. He paused, swallowing hard, as the room remained silent, hanging on his every word. It's about how I felt when I left and why I didn't want to come back. Michael's voice cracked, raw and fragile. This letter is the truth I buried. As he started to read, the familiar rhythm of his words carried everyone along. To my family, he read slowly. I can't find the right words or the courage. But I need you to know that it wasn't to you. It was never you. It was me. A wave of emotion washed over Sarah, a mixture of relief and sorrow. The acknowledgement burned bright, piercing through layers of hurt that had built up over the years. She felt Tom squeeze her hand, and Claire's eyes glistened, filled with unshed tears. Each day that I stayed away, I thought it would get easier, that I could somehow erase the pain. But all it did was push me further into isolation, deeper into guilt. I missed birthdays and holidays. I missed you all living your lives without me. This empty space inside me just grew and grew. Michael's voice wavered, but he pressed on, as if every word was a brick falling from a long-held wall. I've carried this letter, meant to give it to you all, but fear held me back. I was afraid I would be rejected, that nothing I could say would bring back the family we used to be. Michael, we've been waiting for you, Sarah murmured, her heart breaking for him. You don't need to be afraid anymore. Yeah, man. We're still here, Tom added, his voice warm and reassuring. None of us have forgotten. Michael looked around the room, absorbing the warmth of their support. Encouraged, he continued. This isn't just about regret. It's about wanting to heal, to reconnect. I can't change the past, but I can try to make amends. A whisper of hope began to navigate the tension, but as he read the letter, revealing more vulnerable truths, Sarah felt a growing weight within her chest. The deeper he went, the more it sparked deeply buried feelings inside her. Some words were hard to hear, pricking at old wounds, sharing how each moment apart changed him and them. He finished the letter, his hands shaking slightly. I'm sorry. I really am, so very sorry. His voice broke, and silence enveloped them once more. The confession hung heavy, but within it, there was a flicker of possibility. Could they truly mend what had been broken? As the weight of the moment sunk into each heart, Sarah found her voice again. Michael, we have so much to talk about, so much to share. But this wasn't just for you. We've all been carrying burdens, feeling lost. Everyone nodded, a chorus of reluctant agreement mingled with anticipation. Sensing the urgency in the air, Janet leaned forward. Why don't we go around the room? We can share our own letters, maybe not written, but words we've held close. This is just the start. They all knew it wouldn't be easy, yet hope flickered, the kind that didn't just restore old relationships, but painted a new future. Michael nodded slowly, already uniting his thoughts with theirs. The room felt lighter, the shadows retreating just slightly as they shared their truths, but Sarah couldn't shake the unease gathering in her heart. What if confronting those feelings exposed even deeper pain? Could they handle that? As they started sharing, her throat tightened, and she felt her heart thundering again, unsure of the journey ahead. What else would be revealed? Could they face the truths that could change everything yet again? The room took on a charged atmosphere. Each word shared began to thread a tapestry of emotions. Michael's letter was the catalyst, but it opened the floodgates for everyone else. Sarah could feel the tremor of her voice as she prepared to speak. I've been so angry, she admitted, the words tumbling out, eager to free themselves from her chest. When you left, it felt like you chose to abandon us. I was left to pick up the pieces, and I didn't know how. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, blaming you for everything. Her vulnerability stirred something deep within the group. Tom leaned forward, his brow furrowed in understanding. I can relate, Sarah, he said gently. I felt the same way. I wanted to reach out, but I didn't know what to say. I felt abandoned too, like I wasn't worth it. It hurt. I didn't want to talk about it, but I missed you. The room felt smaller, the distance closing as shared pain filled the spaces between them. Claire wiped a tear that slipped down her cheek, her voice cracking with emotion. I often wondered if I did something wrong. If I had been better at keeping in touch, would you still have left? Her throat tightened. I thought perhaps you just didn't want to be part of our lives anymore. Sarah glanced around. Each person was catching emotions, a wave starting to flow through them. These confessions, though raw and painful, wore the hope of healing. It felt like a collective release of burdens. Michael blinked back tears, wishing he could take away each hurtful memory they recounted. I never wanted to hurt any of you. I thought by staying away, I could spare you my pain. But I only made things worse. I thought I was protecting you, and it turns out, all I did was hurt us all. I'm sorry. The sincerity in his voice was palpable. Janet cleared her throat, catching the energy in the room. You know what? There's a lot of hurt to unpack. For every wound we share, there's also love and memories. We can't fix everything overnight, but what if we made a promise to be more open, to show up for each other? Let this be the start. Together, Michael broke in, a spark igniting in his eyes. Family is worth fighting for. Sarah felt that simple statement intertwine with her heart, a warmth spreading through the chill of previous resentment. Could they truly hold on to this sense of togetherness? Would it be genuine? Everyone nodded, hesitant but hopeful. As silence fell again, a soft hum of mutual agreement filled the air. Each person in the room knew they had a long, winding road ahead. The moment felt significant, a moment where they didn't just speak about healing, they committed to it. But deep down, Sarah sensed an undercurrent of fear hiding just beneath the surface. What if exposing those hidden bits brought about something irreparable? What if the act of vulnerability only tore them further apart? She took a deep breath, steeling herself. Maybe we should all write letters to each other, not formal ones, but ones that express what we still need to say. What we've kept within us all this time. Michael's eyes widened, understanding the weight of that suggestion immediately. Let us put it all out there, Tom added, his face a mix of resolve and trepidation. Let us really connect. It's scary, but we owe it to ourselves. With hesitant smiles, they embraced the idea, a new layer of honesty unfolding before them. How deep could their courage run? And with each word written, would old wounds deepen or finally find a way to heal? The clock ticked on, but the journey was just beginning. Would they be ready for everything that might surface when the letters were shared? Days passed, and anticipation hung in the air like a heavy fog, thick with unspoken words and emotions. Each person had committed to writing their letters, yet as the deadline approached, Sarah felt unease creep over her like a chill. The prospect of pouring out her feelings on paper was daunting. Could she truly lay bare the hurt that had accumulated in her heart all these years? In her small studio apartment, Sarah surrounded herself with crumpled drafts, her emotions playing tag with her thoughts. She feared being vulnerable, of unleashing a flood she might not be able to control. Tugging at her hair in frustration, she took a moment to slow her racing heart. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her pen. She thought of Michael, the brother she once adored and now barely recognized. She remembered the nights they shared laughter, the secrets whispered under blankets. Closing her eyes, she decided to start with that moment. Michael, do you remember when we were kids? How you would pretend to be a superhero, and I'd follow you everywhere. I wanted to be just like you. Words flowed like a stream, each one a stepping stone bridging the years of pain. As she wrote about her anger, her feelings of betrayal, she also infused the letter with hope. I miss you, and I don't want to keep feeling this way. Can we find our way back to each other? Across town, Tom struggled with his own letter. He felt trapped between his longing for connection and the suffocating weight of old grievances. What if exposing his true feelings brought up even more hurt? He recalled the time Sarah looked at him with disappointment, and it gnawed at him. Yet, what kind of man would he be if he didn't try to mend things? He pushed his doubts aside and began, "Dear Sarah, it's been hard, hasn't it? I've carried so much worry about our family since you left. I should have reached out. I want to do better for you." In moments of quiet desperation, Claire, holding her letter, felt the weight of guilt resting heavily on her shoulders. She feared that opening up would only intensify the wounds they all shared. Yet, she found a sanctuary in the act of writing. She poured out her heart, sharing her confusion and her deep desire for understanding. "I hope to mend what we've lost. I want to be part of your healing just as much as I yearn for mine." The evening of the letter sharing loomed large as they gathered in Michael's living room again. Each person entered with papers clasped tightly in their fists. A mixture of excitement and dread filled the room, a charged landscape of emotions threatening to spill over. As they settled in, the lights dimmed, and silence filled the air like a thick blanket. Who would start? Who would break the seal of vulnerability first? Michael, feeling the weight of everyone's gazes, took a deep breath and began to read his letter aloud. His voice quivered slightly, but he pushed through. Each word was laced with hope, and with every sentence, fragments of the past felt less like chains and more like threads connecting their stories. The honesty ricocheted off the walls, creating an echo of shared pain. Tears glimmered in the corners of their eyes, and as each letter unfolded, each raw confession, each heartfelt apology, the distance they'd felt for years began to dissolve. "Please, let us hold on to this," Sarah whispered, her heart pounding, caught between fear and hope. But as she observed their shifting expressions, she couldn't shake a lingering doubt. Would they really be able to mend what was so deeply broken? And what if the truth unveiled darker shadows hiding beneath the surface? As she wiped her tears, she glanced around the circle, silently begging for strength. Together, Michael echoed again, his voice a steady beacon in the storm of emotions. But was it enough? Would they find the courage to face what lay beyond the letters? The answers awaited, just out of reach. As the night deepened, Michael's voice lingered in the air, threading through the hearts of everyone. The vulnerability swirling around brought a sense of clarity, the kind that slices through years of pain with the sharpness of truth. With his letter finished, Michael looked up, his gaze seeking connection, fear etched in the lines of his face. "I don't expect forgiveness right away. I just want to start be part of something real again." Claire stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly as she wiped her eyes. "Thank you for sharing that, Michael. I've held my own loneliness too. It's suffocating to keep it all inside." She took a deep breath before continuing, her voice gaining strength. "I wish I had known how much you were hurting." Her honesty nudged the others, sparking murmurs of understanding. Tom chimed in, echoing her sentiment. "This is what we've been missing. We can't heal if we keep pretending." Nodding, Sarah decided it was time. She unfolded her letter with shaking hands, her heart thudding with anticipation. "I've been so afraid to talk. I thought I didn't deserve to feel angry or hurt. But I do." Her voice trembled, but she forced through. "I remember the days when we were kids, Michael. We laughed and ran together. Then everything got murky, and I lost sight of the brother I loved. My heart ached, thinking you chose not to come back." Silence enveloped her words, knitting the community closer. Tears welled in Michael's eyes, reflecting Sarah's own. "I never meant to abandon you. I was lost." As she continued, vulnerability danced around the room, wrapping everyone in warmth. "I miss our family, I miss you. I want to forgive, but I need to feel that you're really here, that you want this too." The atmosphere shifted, the heavy air lightened by a newfound articulation of their shared sorrow. Janet joined in, her voice clear and strong. "We've all lost sight of each other, haven't we? But in this moment, we are all willing to try again. Isn't that what family does?" "Exactly," Paul added, his brow smoothed with resolve. "Healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means having each other's back, no matter how deep the scars." The room transformed into a safe harbor, and as they shared, echoes of laughter and empathy floated among them. Their individual wounds felt less isolating altogether in the circle of shared humanity. But still, there was uncertainty. Sarah glanced at Michael, gauging his reaction. But will we actually follow through? Are we strong enough to endure this healing? At that moment, something clicked inside her, a shift from trepidation to an unwavering hope. Maybe, Michael began, his voice steady, we create a pact. A promise to hold each other accountable, a commitment to face whatever comes up together. His courage was infectious, igniting sparks of resolution in others. I can support that, Claire said with a nod, a flame of determination flickering in her chest. If we stand united, we can strengthen each other and ourselves. Excitement burbled beneath the surface as everyone began to speak up, each voicing their commitment. We have a lot of work to do, Sarah said, a radiant smile breaking through her uncertainty. But if we commit to be present in each other's lives, I believe we can rise above. As they finished sharing their letters, warmth enveloped them. Their hearts beat in unison, filling the room with connections newly forged. Even Paul, whose face held the remnants of skepticism, found peace in the solidarity surrounding them. Let us do this. I'll do my part. Exhilaration filled the air as laughter broke through like delicate sunlight piercing the morning fog. The barriers that once seemed insurmountable shrunk into mere whispers of the past. As the night wore on, they talked about their lives, hopes for the future, dreams that had lain dormant for too long. Their stories spun more than just an echo of the past. They wove a tapestry of hope and renewal. In every embrace, every shared laugh, and every tear wiped away, the heaviness lifted. Laughter and stories curled like smoke from a bonfire, illuminating the way ahead. Their individual transformations blossomed into a collective renaissance. At last, Michael turned to Sarah. Can we find our way back? He asked, his eyes radiant with yearning. Absolutely, she replied, her heart swelling. This is just the beginning. As they rose to celebrate their renewed family, a gentle reverberation of warmth filled the room, wrapped around them like a cherished old blanket. They had turned their history into strength, harmonizing each loss, each victory, into the beautiful sound of unity. Sarah looked at everyone around the room, their smiles radiant and their hearts open. They really were a community. They had forged their narrative anew. But now it was their duty to keep this spirit alive, to support one another, to reach out no matter the distance or time spent apart. As she stepped towards the door, she could feel Tom's hand on her shoulder, gently guiding her back into the fold of family and community. The future was brighter now, lit by the vitality of their shared stories. This was their moment. Their new beginning, and it was time to shine. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.